Now the House has come to order. We'll hear from the honourable member for Werriwa.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. How is the Albanese Labor government acting to get fuel where it needs to go?
Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I thank my friend and very valued neighbour and South West Sydney colleague, the member for Werriwa, for the question. And, Mr Speaker, as the Prime Minister has indicated, supply to our country does remain strong. Of the 6 ships that we informed the nation that had been cancelled on the weekend, all have been replaced with alternative supplies from alternative countries, and at least 3 other spot cargo offers have been confirmed and on their way to Australia. That's a good thing, and our 2 refineries are working full pelt with all their production exclusively for Australian use, and that is certainly, Mr Speaker, the way it should be at this situation. Now, that is not to say, Mr Speaker, of course, as the government has always recognised, that there aren't real shortages, particularly in regional areas, that need to be addressed. And what we're dealing with is a couple of things, and it's important to run through for the House. We saw demand increase very dramatically, and we saw suppliers, not unreasonably and in fact lawfully and legally, making sure that they supplied petrol to the people who had ordered in advance, i.e. people on contract. People in the spot market have not been able to be supplied at the same rate as those contracts are honoured in the first instance. There's people who ordered petrol in advance under the contract system. But we have been working very hard, Mr Speaker, and I do want to take this opportunity to say there are a lot of people working hard at the moment. People in refineries, truckies, people in my department, people in state departments working very hard, long hours, to try and see these shortages addressed. And on behalf of the government, I want to say thank you to them. Now, Mr Speaker, I can report to the House that today Ampol has advised me, for example, their year-on-year supplies to regional Australia and their supplies to independent distributors. For example, March this year compared to March last year, 40% higher to independent suppliers in regional New South Wales, 33% higher in regional Queensland, 66% higher in South Australia, 22% higher in Tasmania, 19% higher in Victoria and 64% higher in Western Australia. That's Ampol supplies to independent distributors. And their supplies in total, including to their own retail outlets, are up, for example, 34% in New South Wales and up 44% in South Australia. I would have thought members from regional South Australia would welcome that, Mr Speaker, and up 27% in total. Now, that does not mean there aren't shortages, as we're dealing with the increased demand and with recovering as the supply chain recovers, as it had to during COVID in so many instances. When you get a big increase in demand, it takes time for the supply chain to recover, to backfill the existing demand. But the fact that the supply to regional Australia is up substantially shows that the measures this government has put in place with industry, working closely in collaboration with the states, are seeing real progress, Mr Speaker, which is what Australians so desperately deserve and are receiving.